It has officially been 21 days since I haven't smoked or consumed any cannabis, I haven't watched any porn, and I haven't binged watched any TV shows. Here's the proof. And unfortunately, I feel amazing. I really actually didn't want it to work as well as it did, but intuitively, I felt like I was ready for this and that it was something that I needed to do because right now in my life, I've been asking for more blessings. I've been asking for upgrades. There are things in my life that I want to change completely. And when you want your life to change in dramatic ways, it means that there's going to be some dramatic losses. I went through a breakup that was kind of unexpected. The surface level reason for that breakup was that he's bisexual and he just needed more time to explore, whether he wanted to be with men or whether he wanted to be with a woman. So that's neither here nor there. What I've realized that I needed in my life was to not siphon my energy out. And I am now coming to understand that I need every ounce of my creative energy to be toward building my dream life. And I cannot be moving around or really taking anyone else's energy into consideration. And there is a period, which I still may be in, of more isolation than usual. I've had very social seasons of life, and I've had seasons where I'm more alone. And I was sitting in my loneliness, and this was all during holiday season. And I just decided, I'm going to think about this differently. I'm not lonely. I'm experiencing the feeling of loneliness. And this is a preparatory season for me where I learn how to be so self-sustaining, so self-sovereign, so self-fulfilling. I'm obsessed with the movie Dune, and there are these characters who are called the Fremen, and they live in the desert. And unlike the Harkonnen, who try to control the desert through force, the Fremen work with the desert, right? They work with the sandworms. They learn how to live within the desert. And water is the most precious resource because it's the desert. And they created these suits that take all the water from your body, all sweat, all tears, all bodily fluids, and it recycles it into drinking water. This part of my life is me building a working Fremen suit. It's being able to not need others' opinions to make a decision. It's trusting my intuition, and it's getting quiet enough to hear my intuition and moving based on that and that alone. And I needed to be isolated in order to cultivate this inner strength. And I also needed to experience pain. I'm really in my memoir era. I just finished Educated, and I decided to reread Greenlights by Matthew McConaughey. It's an incredible book. He's very wise, which I didn't know before I read this. I just want to read part of what it says, but he says, "Green lights mean go, advance, carry on, continue. On the road, they are set up to give the flow of traffic the right of way. And when scheduled properly, more vehicles catch more green lights in succession. They say, proceed. In our lives, they're an affirmation of our way. They're approvals, support, praise, gifts, gas on our fire, attaboys, appetites. They're cash money, birth, springtime, health, success, joy, sustainability, innocence, and fresh starts. We love green lights. They don't interfere with our direction. They're easy. They're a shoeless summer. They say yes and give us what we want. Green lights can also be disguised as yellow and red lights, a caution, a detour, a thoughtful pause, an interruption, a disagreement, indigestion, sickness, and pain. We don't like yellow and red lights. They slow us down or stop our flow. They're hard. They're a shoeless winter. They say no, but sometimes give us what we need. And for me, that's exactly what this breakup was. I know that I needed to feel the pain that I'm still currently feeling of the emptiness of my life. I need to feel the lack in my life because pain and lack are two of the greatest catalyzers, right? Sometimes you need to feel the pain in order to move in the direction that you're meant to move. The longer that I live, the more that I believe in fate. The longer that I live, the more that I believe that there's some higher power who's orchestrating all this, because I certainly didn't. And learning to accept that the disappointments that happen in your life often end up in great satisfaction. So in a moment when we're experiencing something very painful, being able to have some imagination and say, I don't know how this all works out, but I trust that it's going to end up in a good place. And I say all of this in this season of my life, knowing that it's a time to manage my creative energy, not give it out really to anyone but myself, and become someone who's very self-sustaining. I started to take a look at my life and my behaviors and my habits, like I always do, but really on another level, right? Because I'm like, okay, if I want to level up, I have to do things on another level. And I just know that I'm not here to live an average life. And that means that I have to have habits and disciplines that are also not average. I have nothing against smoking weed at all. In fact, I think that cannabis has been incredibly helpful for me in many ways. And at a particular time in my life, I really feel like I needed it. Not just to cope, but I needed it to help me connect to something outside of myself. Honestly, what I would call God, a higher power, a divine creator. And weed helped me access that, right? It gave me a little bit of margin, just like medication does. I think a lot of people have resistance to taking medication for mental health because one, there's stigma, right? Like, oh, I should be able to handle this. But also, I think there is a good part of that. This might be controversial, but I think with some mental illnesses, right, there's extreme cases, but with some mental illnesses, we can create a life that is so meaningful and so fulfilling that we actually don't experience depression and anxiety in the same way. However, medication helps give us a bit of margin to work through it. Again, I'm not talking about extreme cases, but I do think we're overly medicated, just like we're overly medicated with physical health as well. I was using it because it was so helpful for me at that time, but it wasn't helping in the same way. And in fact, it was doing the opposite. So I knew that in order to level up, this was something that I needed to give up entirely. You know how some people, they have to give up alcohol because the real problem that they have is with crystal meth? But once they take one sip of wine, then they have 2 glasses of wine, then they take a shot, then they're smoking weed, then they're doing cocaine, and it just leads them down the road to crystal meth. When I started to smoke cannabis, then I would lie down, I would feel more lethargic, and then I would start to watch shows, and then I would binge watch shows, and then I would fall asleep, and then I would just spend hours of time not doing the work that I know I need to do to level up, but instead avoiding it and just filling my life with really empty pleasures. Weed in and of itself, binge watching shows, porn, all of those things in and of themselves are not bad. But how I was using it also was not bad. I don't care about the morality of those things. I just care about living a full and fulfilled life. And I felt like those things were not helping me. And I'm also a singer and I want to have really good vocal health. So I feel like smoking cannabis wasn't really helping me with that either. So that's why I stopped smoking weed. And then the reason that I gave up binge watching television shows is one, I know that for me specifically, it's just a behavior that I've seen modeled for me as a form of escapism. And I don't want to live a life that I have to escape from. And I know that right now I am ready to be living and acting as if I am my higher self. There are certain things that I'm calling into my life and I'm trying to manifest, especially when it comes to career and success. So in order to do that, acting as if isn't spending money like my multimillionaire self would spend money, right? Because I don't have that money. Acting as if is not escaping from my life, because my multimillionaire self would not need to escape from her life. She loves her life. She wakes up every morning excited to do the work that she's called to do for that day, to connect with her online community in a meaningful way, to wake up every day with energy. So how can I act as if in that way? So I made a high energy playlist that I play in the morning to put me in a higher vibrational state. For me, I know when I start to feel sad, I don't need to feel pleasure. I actually need to feel pain. I need to do something hard. I need to work for my joy. So doing the dishes, not necessarily a pleasurable activity. When I do the dishes, I feel pleasure after. It's practicing delayed gratification. It's practicing in little micro ways, doing something difficult, knowing that the reward is going to pay off eventually. Similar to meditation, and even though I never played a sport, similar to conditioning, right? You work out so that you can play the sport better, right? You're running laps so that you don't get tired when you're on the court. With meditation, you're practicing focus, you're practicing presence, you're practicing just being with yourself so that you can live your life in a meditative state. Not zoned out like but meditative state meaning that you're present. You're awake, you're alive, you're in this moment. You're not rushing to the next moment because you know that the only destination is death. And I want to be in my life, not trying to get to the next moment. And when I'm forced to sit with an evening where I don't have plans and it would be so easy just to watch a show to fill my time, I think, what else could I do? What else could I do that's actually going to close the gap between my goal and where I am now? And it's uncomfortable, but it's actually only uncomfortable for a little while. And you move through it. You ride the wave of discomfort, knowing that it's always going to crash back down. And it's actually not that hard. And then you start to build mastery. Oh, I've done this hard thing for 21 days in a row. And it actually starts to get easier. And also at the end of the day, I just think about all of the hours that I've spent watching TV shows that are empty and pointless and meaningless, and they just don't inspire me. I love art, right? Like TV that's art or shows that are art, incredible, amazing. If they inspire you, then I think that that's amazing. But if I'm just numbing out, filling my brain with actual nonsense, then I don't want to do that. So sometimes I'll just watch SNL on YouTube because that brings me a lot of joy. Or I'll watch, an informative video on YouTube. Or I've been watching artists explain their music, or I'll watch music videos. Those are the things that actually inspire me. It's still media, but it's completely different because I'm not numbing, right? It's always the intention. The intention behind your actions matters way more than the action itself. Because the action for one person could mean that they're living in alignment with their soul, where action for another person could mean that they're creating a behavior that is going to lead to their eventual destruction. For instance, alcohol for me, I don't really have a problem with it. I don't think about it. I drink wine here and there. I might have a cocktail here and there. I've had my drunken nights, but it really just doesn't affect me that much. Whereas for somebody else, they have to be sober. They have to practice sobriety. So it's really about being mindful and aware of the things that you know are keeping you from living the life that you don't have to escape from. When it comes to porn, for me, this was a very pragmatic decision. There's so much shame around porn, and not tackling in this video the systemic issues and the abuse that is in the porn industry. I don't have enough knowledge to really comment on that, although I know that it exists. Just thinking about it from like the moral standpoint, porn and masturbation are often coupled together, and I'm very pro masturbation. I think that everybody should touch themselves, pleasure themselves. It's literally your body. You should definitely be able to touch it, especially women. However, for me, pornography would give me such a big high that my body had to regulate itself and put me at a low. And all of my life right now is about managing my creative energy. And I just felt like that really wasn't helping me. So that's the only reason that I gave that up, not from any moral standpoint at all. And it really wasn't something that was taking over my life or really something that I did very often or frequently. I would have like spurts, probably when I was ovulating, honestly. At the end of the day, it was just a very pragmatic decision, and I don't think that my life is worse without it. And these three things are not something that I'm committed to sobriety forever. I just know right now I'm managing my energy and parenting and policing myself in a way. At the beginning, when you're pushing into the next level, that's the hardest part. One analogy that I have is that I had to get a root canal a little while ago, and the root canal specialist told me it was going to take about an hour. I sat in the chair. They put this like plastic thing over my mouth. They put the Novocaine in. I was numb. They started drilling. And I don't really get anxious very much at all. But there was something about the intense drilling that just started to make me feel anxious, and I started to feel trapped, and I started to feel claustrophobic. And I was like, I cannot do this for an hour. Like, I just tried to push through it, and I was like, I cannot do this. So I told them, like, I need to sit up. So I sat up, and I was like, I don't know. I don't have any earbud. I don't have any headphones. I'm just like feeling so anxious right now. And they were like, totally get it. This is a very hard procedure. And you can take breaks whenever you want. Just let us know. I calmed down and I was like, okay, great. And then I continued the procedure. And as the procedure kept going, the drilling only lasted for about 5 more minutes. It only lasted completely in total 15 more minutes. So the other 45 minutes was them doing other stuff. I don't really know what else they were doing, but the drilling, the most intense part, it only lasted 15 minutes. And that has stuck with me because anytime you're changing a bad habit or you're trying to create a good habit or you're leveling up to the next level, the initial part is really hard, but then it kind of cools down a bit and it's much more tolerable. What I've accepted about my life right now is I have to manage my energy really intensely just for right now. I could probably ease up on it later. I don't know about the habits. I don't know. I'm not thinking about a year from now. I don't really care. All I know is that right now is the only now that exists, and I need to be managing my energy. That is what the universe is telling me. That's what God is telling me, and that's what makes me feel the best. That's how the Holy Spirit or your intuition or God, creator of the universe, speaks to you through what feels good and what feels bad. Our emotions are a guidance system. So listening and learning from my emotions and deciphering, healing your trauma, healing all of those voices that are lying to you, and just constantly speaking life over yourself. I constantly speak life over myself. I wake up in the morning and I say, I cannot wait to live this day. Every time I accomplish a task, I say, great job, especially if it's one that I used to struggle with in the past. Every time I work out, even though it's been a part of my routine for years now, I'm like, great job. You smashed that workout. Every time I clean the dishes right after I cook, I'm like, amazing job, Pearl. I literally will say it out loud or I'll say it in my head. I'm healing myself. I'm giving myself so much verbal affirmation constantly. At the end of the night, I'm journaling. I'm asking myself reflective questions. Did I live according to my purpose? Did I live knowing that success is inevitable to me? And I'm like, I crushed it. Today you crushed the day. And I feel like I crushed the day, especially because I've resisted for 21 days, my favorite things to do, the things that just give me the most easy, nice pleasure. When I can say no to those things, not just because I'm saying no to them, but because I know that it's serving a greater purpose, my self-esteem goes up and I feel strong. I feel emotionally strong. And it also just creates practically so much more space for me to do the things that I want to do, even making this video right now. That's all I have for today. Love y'all. Thank you so much for listening, especially if you've made it to the end. Thank you. I'm obsessed. All right. See you next time. Bye.